वेलकम टू वीलर्न में आपका स्वागत है। We are discussing Management Control System, Session 10, Reward and Compensation. Topics covered are overriding objectives, characteristics of incentive compensation plan, incentives for corporate officers and CEOs, incentive for business unit managers, the benefits of performance-dependent reward, and lastly, research finding on organizational incentives. When we talk about incentive or reward, they are basically anything that attracts an employee's attention and it stimulates them to work. So basically an incentive scheme is a program or a plan which helps in motivating individuals or a group performance. Now incentive system, they have a limited meaning that excludes many kind of inducements which are offered to people to perform work, and it does not include wage and salary payments and the merit pay. When we talk about its overriding objectives, so there are basically 4 objectives of reward and compensation systems which are including in recruitment of people in the company, or control of payroll cost, or the satisfaction of individuals, and lastly the reduction of voluntary separations, which are grievances and conflicts regarding pay and motivation. So the first one is compensation. It basically seeks to accomplish a labor market function of allocating human resource among different enterprises in terms of perceived attractiveness of wages and salary. So it is a very effective measure to attract human resources for recruitment purposes in any kind of competitive labor market. Secondly, it must be very carefully designed compensation system, because it facilitates the control of wage and salary and labor costs. So the management, they may take care of to control the distribution of rates within a predetermined rate range, and then exert control upon the frequency and volume of pay increments. Thirdly, the financial compensation, they seek to maintain a satisfaction of human resource by reducing voluntary separations and complaints and grievances which are stemming from inadequate or inequitable wages. They also help in avoiding situations where the remuneration is perceived as adequate and equitable, which is likely to check the employee dissatisfaction. Lastly, the financial compensation system, it purports to induce and rewards the improved performance, and it becomes a form of an effective motivator. So it usually held that increase in pay should be determined basically on the basis of productivity, and that those who produce, they are paid more. When we talk about the characteristics of incentive compensation plan, so a manager's total compensation, it basically consists of 3 components. जो पहला component है वो होता है predetermined fixed salary, जो regular intervals पे increments भी cover करता है. Second is there are benefits which cover basically health cover for self and family, या फिर pension scheme हो सकती है. Third is incentive compensation. So these 3 components, they are interrelated, but the third component, that is incentive component, is specially related to the management control system. जितने भी countries where corporate and security laws are mandate, the incentive compensation plan and the revision of the existing plans, they are approved by the shareholders, whereas there are no such approval is required for salaries and perquisites. Now the incentive compensation when we talk about, ये दो categories में divided है. The first is short term incentive plan, जो कि performance पे based होता है current year performance की. There are long term performance plans which relate to compensation to long terms and which usually range from 3 to 5 years. When we talk about short-term incentive plans, so they could be broadly classified into three categories. The three categories are systems which are under the rate of extra incentive, which is proportionately at a lower rate than the increase in output. And there are systems under which the rate of extra incentive is in proportion to extra output. And thirdly, there are systems under which the rate of incentive is proportionately higher than the rate of increase in output. Now there are specific short-term incentive plans when we talk about. The first one is the total bonus plan. When we talk about the total bonus plan, here under this plans जो shareholder होते हैं, they basically vote on the formula which is used to calculate the total amount of bonus that could be paid to qualified group of workers. एक होता है carry overs when we say. So under this bonus pool method, what happens? Total bonus is arrived on the basis of predefined formula which is available for distribution in that particular year. Then comes deferred compensation. When we talk about deferred compensation, it is yet another variation of carryover method, and under this method a bonus is calculated every year, but payment is spread over a number of years to the recipient, and they are usually ranging from 3 to 5 years. When we talk about long term incentive plans, तो लॉन्ग टर्म इंसेंटिव प्लान्स जो होते हैं या अवार्ड्स होते हैं, दे आर बेसिकली बेस्ड ऑन परफॉर्मेंस मेजरमेंट विच आर मोर देन 1 ईयर. जो इस प्लान के लिए बेसिक प्रमाइस है कि लॉन्ग टर्म इंसेंटिव है, इट इज बेसिकली दैट शेयर प्राइस ऑफ द कंपनी विच रिफ्लेक्ट द कंपनीज लॉन्ग टर्म परफॉर्मेंस. सो इन अदर वर्ड्स हम बात करें तो लॉन्ग टर्म इंसेंटिव प्लान्स जो है, इट इज बेसिकली मेजर्ड इन टर्म्स ऑफ अकाउंटिंग वेरिएबल्स. द मोस्ट कॉमनली अकाउंटिंग वेरिएबल्स आर ईपीएस, अर्निंग पर शेयर, और रिटर्न ऑन इक्विटी की हम बात करते हैं, या फिर एसेट और इन्वेस्टमेंट ओवर अ पीरियड रेंजिंग फ्रॉम 3 to 6 years होता है. नाउ देयर आर सम लॉन्ग टर्म इंसेंटिव प्लान्स सच एज stock options. So here manager is given a right to buy a specified number of shares, right? Another is phantom shares. तो जो phantom shares होते हैं, managers they are basically allotted shares. These are the notional shares for bookkeeping purposes only. Another is stock appreciation rights. So here the manager is basically entitled to receive the cash payment which is based on the increase in value of stock. Another is performance share. Here managers they are basically rewarded a specific number of shares when specific long-term goals they have been met. And lastly, performance units. So under this plan, a cash bonus is basically paid on achieving a specific long-term plan. When we talk about long-term incentive plans, there comes organizational incentive. So an organization or an individual incentive plan, it basically involves a direct relationship between the magnitude of output and the amount of financial rewards and the purpose to accomplish the higher output per unit. The organization incentive system, here it involves a cooperation among all the employees, among all the management and union. And why the cooperation is required? The cooperation is required to accomplish broader objectives. The broader objectives could be organization-wide reduction in labor or material and supply cost. Even strengthening of employee loyalty to the company can also be associated with the organization-wide reasons. Now there are three types of organization-wide incentive plan. First is the Scalcon. The second is the Kaiser, which is the United Steel Workers Plan, and the third is the profit sharing. When we talk about this Scanlon plan, it is basically devised by Joseph M. Scanlon, and what happens, this particular plan purports to accomplish a widespread employee participation and industrial harmony and an increased productivity, and it involves a wage formula or incentive and a new type of suggestion system. The wage formula here relates to the distribution of earnings from increased productivity, which is proportionately among all the individuals who are involved. Now here what comes, there was suggestion system which relates to the establishment of production and screening committee, whereas the purpose is to analyze employee suggestion and prepare a general plan for improving the productivity. Another is the Kaiser plan. Kaiser United Steel Workers Plan, it was devised in the year 1963, and it was done with a view to eliminate the threats of strike by equitably distributing the company's financial gains among all the employees, the shareholder and the public. Now by providing jobs or income security. Now this basic plan is basically characterized by guaranteed employment to workers against any technological unemployment or sharing of the gains resulting from cost reduction, right? The last is profit sharing system. Profit sharing was defined by International Cooperative Congress. Herein it defines as by which an employer receives the share or a fixed income in advance of the profits. Now there are three types of profit sharing system. First one is current, that is cash profit sharing. Another is deferred profit sharing, and lastly is the combination profit sharing. When we talk about current or cash profit sharing, it basically involves payment of profits directly to the employee by mode of cash. When we talk about deferred profit sharing system, your profits are credited to the accounts of employee, which is to be paid at the time of retirement. Lastly is the combination profit sharing system. It makes use of both the above system, partly which is paid out currently in cash and partly which is of deferred nature. When we talk about incentive for corporate officers and CEOs, किसी भी इकोनॉमिक environment में it is very easy to measure the micro variables, but to assess the macro picture it's very difficult. Under these kind of situation, जहाँ पे there are which are applied to the company, there are raised question कि performance कैसे measure करी जाए corporate officers की. And when we talk about corporate officers, it includes CFOs, vice president of all the departments. So what happened, each corporate officers except for CEO, they are basically responsible in part of the company's overall performance, and these corporate officers, they are entitled to motivate by bonus or good performance. When we talk about, yes, there is no set formula or method of measuring the performance of corporate officer, but the usual practice is that the chief executive officer, they recommend the awards to compensation committee of the board of director. So these awards, they are based on subjective assessment by the CEO of each performance, chief executive performance of each performance person. So what happens, the chief executive, basically compensation is a trick which issue, and they must heat up that has been generated over this issue in the recent past. Now there are incentives for business unit managers. There are a wide options which are available for developing an incentive compensation package. Now there are types of incentive which could be classified as financial and psychological or social. So when we talk about financial incentives, वो include करते हैं salary increase हो गया, या फिर bonuses हो गया, perquisites हो गया, जबकि financial और social incentives जो होते हैं वो promotion होता है, या फिर increased responsibility होती है, increase in autonomy होती है. When we talk about size of bonus which is relative to salary, so this issue of size of bonus which is relative to the salary, it is basically governed by two contradicted philosophy. One school of thought, it basically lays a lot of stress on recruitment of good people, and when recruiting good people, pay them well. As a result of paying them well, then expect a good performance. But the other school of thought lays stress on recruiting good people. Because you are recruiting good people, you are expecting a good performance from them. Because of good performance, pay them well if the performance is really actually good. Then comes performance criteria. So this is basically one of the problems which arise while deciding about the incentive bonus. That is, what is the criteria which are to be used for evaluating the performance of a business unit manager, and how to segregate controllable and uncontrollable factors, and what should be the quantum of allowance for uncontrollable factors. When we talk about benefits of performance dependent reward, जो परफॉर्मेंस बेस्ड रिवॉर्ड्स होते हैं, दे एक्ट एज अ मोटिवेशनल टूल, और ये बहुत ज़्यादा एम्पैथस प्रोवाइड करता है सो दैट employees' natural skill set, they are aligned with the organization objective. The first control benefit is basically informational. Again, the reward system, they act as a signaling device which signals about organization priority. Now the second control benefit of reward is motivational. When we talk about performance rewards, performance dependent rewards, they basically serve many non-control purposes, and some of them are, first, reward are recruitment as well as retention tool. So performance based rewards, they form a major part of compensation package which are signaled to potential employees. The second is a properly devised reward system. It can also help in reducing the tax liability of both the employer and the employee. The third is, there are some reward systems which are designed in such a way that they act as a defense mechanism. Now come research finding on organizational incentive. तो important function of management control system is basically to align the employee self-interest with the organizational goal. So reward incentives, they are basically help in inducing to satisfy these needs that individual can't obtain without aligning his interest with that of the organization. Now there are certain research findings. पहला है, individuals, they are motivated by the potential of earning rewards rather than fear of punishment. Second, monetary rewards, they act as motivational tool up to a certain level, but beyond that their marginal utility declines, thereby suggesting that for junior or middle level managers, monetary rewards will act as a motivator, but for senior non-monetary rewards, they work wonders. Feedback is also an important component of reward system. Another, rewards, they should be timely, and the reward system should be very realistic. There are two exercises that needs to be done. Discuss in detail the various types of long-term incentives and differentiate between control and non-control objectives for performance-dependent reward. Thank you and have a nice day. Keep learning and relearning.